Yanis Varoufakis critiques the exploitation by Western tech giants, but he faces questions about his own use of their products and why he criticizes companies like Google and Amazon while praising Chinese tech firms. In this video, Yanis responds thoughtfully to these challenges.
Think about Alexa. Alexa is this little contraption that Jeff Bezos sells you to connect to Amazon and to the internet. And you feel that it is your slave. You say, Alexa, order this book for me, or switch off the lights, or whatever, right? But essentially, it's an interface with this cloud capital belonging to Jeff Bezos, and you're training it to train you, to train it better, to know what you want, to give you good advice, to win over your trust. I don't know about you, but when Amazon recommends a book to me, I always want to read it, and I never regret it. Similarly with Spotify, when it recommends music to me, I actually like it, usually, and sometimes I love it.
Because it knows you very well.
I have trained it to train me, to know me.
Isn't that progress, Yanis? That is
of course it is.
The advance of technology.
But at the same time, it is a source of major crisis. Why? Because the moment it wins my trust, it can say to me, oh, buy this electric bicycle. And I say, okay, click, I buy it. And then this electric bicycle comes to me bypassing every market. Once upon a time, a brilliant advertiser could convince me that I need to eat a Big Mac, that I really shouldn't be eating. I didn't need it, I didn't want it. But it convinced me. But I had to go to McDonald's to get it. Now it comes directly to me, bypassing every market, and Amazon keeps up to 40% of the price. That's rent. And any economic system which is founded on rent, not profit, is a clear and present danger for the marketplace.
Okay, but people are making
because this
profits
money is coming out of the cyclical flow of income.
Okay, but so you're casting the tech giants essentially as not being producers and not adding value. Well, but they are enabling other businesses, aren't they? Someone has made that bicycle, someone has earned money from it being shipped to you. And if we look at another example, Google, their algorithms, okay, they change the whole time, and that is a terrible thing for businesses who one moment benefit and the other moment find themselves low on the search engines. But they also enable people to find things that are useful, whether they are products or services or merely information.
That's why we all use it. If you take away my phone from me, I'm dead.
So they are adding, that's what I mean, they are adding value.
No, they're not adding any value. They're extracting value. They're very clever at being useful to us, making us be absolutely dependent on them, in order to extract. We both mentioned, Michelle, the electric bicycle. I love it when I press a button of the electric bicycle, one that I actually enjoy riding too, comes to my home. But think of the producer of this electric bicycle, and I don't mean just the worker that has worked on the assembly line, but I'm talking about the capitalist as well. He or she has to pay 40% to Amazon. This is the equivalent, that's the connection with feudalism. Under feudalism, what gave you power was property rights over the land. You owned the land and you could charge rent. And the great the great transformation of capitalism was that you moved away from wealth being concentrated in the hands of people who were lucky enough to inherit land, to entrepreneurs, to people who actually put everything together in the production process with old-fashioned capital as a produced means of production. But now, one of the reasons why our central bankers are having such a difficult time rebalancing our economies, we have inflationary pressures, and at the same time, if they don't keep adding to aggregate demand, there is a danger of falling into stagflation. One of the reasons is, when you've got about, this is my estimation, about 30% of GDP in advanced economies, and increasingly in developing economies, is siphoned off in terms of rent. Remember, David Ricardo, the great banker and economist and politician, at the turn of the 18th to the 19th century, wrote a whole book called The Principles of Economics, of Political Economy, in which he lambasted the landlords because their rent was impeding the development of markets and entrepreneurship. And he was asking that, he was simply worried, and I think he was correct, that when a large chunk of GDP goes into rent, then the marketplace and our capacity to accumulate productive capital shrinks. This is David Ricardo. 1800s, early 1800s. I think that he today would be absolutely appalled by the manner in which this amount of wealth, think about Meta, Zuckerberg's Facebook and so on. Do you know that only about 1 to 2% of their revenues goes to salaries? Because all of us, every time you post something on Instagram or Facebook, every time you post something, you're adding to the cloud capital of Zuckerberg. And this is free labor. Now, you may enjoy it. Of course you enjoy it. That's why you're doing it.
Well, you don't think about it most of the time.
But you are contributing free labor, which does not come back to the circular flow of income.
But Yanis, most of us have agreed to that contract, and we've ticked the terms and conditions often because we want the service for free.
Indeed. But if you go back to the feudal era, the vast majority of the peasants believed that it was a good and fair system. They even enjoyed life. We have a very negative view of feudalism. If you go back to the actual literature of the 16th century, 17th century, people worked, they didn't work very long hours. They had their rituals. They had their, they had lots of holidays. They, it's not clear. I mean, sometimes when the landlord overdid it in the rent extraction game, they rebelled and chopped off their heads. But, the fact that we consent to something does not take away from the economics of it and from the reality that we are essentially undermining the capacity of our macroeconomies to reproduce themselves in a manner which is not degenerative.
Okay, so the rent idea is if going back to your Amazon example, if the rent is 10% rather than 40%, does that fundamentally change your objection? I.e., do you object? Could you accept Amazon getting something like that for the service it is providing, for what it is enabling? Is it the amount that bothers you?
It's not just the amount. Because you see, once you have control of this cloud capital, whether you are a nice person or not a nice person, whether you're Jeff Bezos or, some saint, the incentives are ever so powerful to extract more and more. Because, as we know, from politics, from society, from families, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? This is a remarkable power that you have if you own that machine. And so let me give you an example of the things that happen. So Amazon, or Google for that matter, or Uber, they entice you to get in as a seller, as a producer. If you are a driver of a car, they entice you. Uber gives you good rates to drive. Amazon invites producers to sell through Amazon, giving them, extracting a very low percentage for them. But once you're doing really well by selling your services or your products through Amazon, through Uber, through Airbnb, and so on, the incentive is there for them to downgrade you. So you know what Google does with publishers. Initially, they're very high up on the search list, then they are pushed down, and then they're asked to pay more money, and there's a process that a friend of mine and a very astute observer of what I call techno-feudalism, Cory Doctorow, has referred to as enshittification. This is the natural incentives within these big tech companies. Once they lure you in there, both as a consumer, a user, and as a producer, to extract more and more from you. And therefore, you have a systemic process of extraction, which is macroeconomically highly dangerous. And this is not just for the United States and for Europe. Did you know that in countries like Indonesia, for instance, millions of small-scale kiosks and retailers have been taken over by the Amazon conglomerates and the various other cloud capitalists of that region. So you see this extraction process depleting the resources of actual producers globally. So my job is to alert people to this.
Okay. Do you use these services?
All the time. All the time. But you see, I don't,
What, with gritted teeth, or what is...
No, I don't believe in individualistic acts of, vanity rebellion. That is, what is going to change if I stop using my phone? The world is not going to become a better place. I think that these machines are a great tribute to the human spirit. So take AI. You have AI programs, as we speak, that design antibiotics which can kill bacteria that kill people. Now that needs to be celebrated. So I don't have a problem with the machinery. I don't have a problem with the code. I have a problem with who owns these.
Okay, but maybe that was made
codes.
possible by the 40% what you would call rent.
It has been made possible, but at the same time, a lot of other activities have been made possible. For instance, Amazon in the United States uses exactly the same algorithms that design successful antibiotics in order to surveil workers in the Amazon warehouses and use a mathematical statistical program for predicting the probability that Joe or Kathy is going to talk to somebody and that this discussion may lead to unionization in the particular warehouse, and if the probability exceeds a certain threshold, either they're fired or they shut down the mothball of that particular warehouse in order to prevent unionization. So there are many different uses. So for me, it's not what these machines do, that I have no problem with. My problem is who owns them. And there is exorbitant power in owning Twitter, for instance, or owning Instagram, or owning TikTok. It is utterly inconsistent with any concept of liberal democracy.
And you know that Elon Musk joined us here at the forum 2 days ago, and one of the things he would like to do is to have a payment system within X to give it another dimension. And I'm interested in what you think of that, because I know that you look to China and you see positives in the WeChat app, for example, which is a very all-consuming app. But isn't that another example of a tremendous monopoly power? So if that is the answer, then why would a payment system within X and extra dimensions to services like that not be welcome as well?
Well, interestingly, when Elon Musk purchased Twitter, remember, something like 44 billion, the whole of the press was dumping on him. What a stupid purchase that was. I thought it was a brilliant purchase. Because exactly, and back then, and it's actually in the book, I explained why he bought Twitter. He wanted an everything app. He wanted to create his own WeChat. And for those of you who don't know, WeChat is a Chinese application that does everything that our Western applications do, from Netflix to Twitter to this, but also it offers you an opportunity to make free payments independently of where you have your bank account, as long as it is in one. And Elon Musk was trying, or is trying to do with X, that which Zuckerberg failed to do with Facebook. Remember, he was going to introduce his own currency, the Libra, or the Libra. And Wall Street killed that. Wall Street is trying, as we speak, to kill Elon Musk's version of WeChat. Now, I think that there are two important points to make about this aspiration of Elon Musk. The first one is that the public out there really want it. Because who wants to pay commission to their, the Bank of America, to JP Morgan, to Barclays Bank, and so on? And why should these banks, when they have a zero marginal cost for our transactions, charge us for it? And they charge us for essentially allowing us to use our own money. And this is preposterous. So this is a rent that has to go. And Elon Musk could be sitting here and saying, yeah, you see, I'm against rent. I want to create a free payment system through X. Yeah, but he wants to control it himself. And we know this, that any private system of monetary transactions is the first step towards a major crash, a major crisis. Because we can never trust a privateer with our money.
In that, are you on the side of Wall Street rather than Musk?
No, what I'm saying is I believe in a third way. I, for instance, would very much welcome the Fed issuing its own digital wallet. Imagine if you could download, if you were in the United States, your Fed app, or in the European Union, your ECB app. And you could, put your money in there, ask your employer to pay your salary there, if you want to, totally voluntarily. And imagine if you were to collect the overnight interest rate of the central bank, which is always much higher than what commercial banks. This would be a tremendous step in the direction of cultivating more competition in the financial sector.
It would be like your PayPal or equivalent as well, or your Apple Wallet, that it would be where you
wouldn't need the Apple Wallet anymore, because you would have free payments anywhere in the world using your central bank app. By the way, the bankers already have that, because private banks, commercial banks, have accounts with the Fed. Now, the Chinese are doing that. The only reason why the United States cannot do this is because Wall Street is going to kick and scream. I know that Christine Lagarde and the ECB wants to do this for the euro, and it would be a great financial innovation, but the banks in Frankfurt and Paris are going to be all over her if she dares do this, so they are trying to contain it so that you can't have more than 1,000 or 2,000 euros in it. Essentially, the bankers want their monopoly. They shouldn't have it. They should not be allowed to have it. So I'm against an Elon Musk-owned cryptocurrency or payment system. I'm against WeChat, because I don't believe that we have the right to create yet more exorbitant power in the hands of an individual. But at the same time, I do believe that we should democratize and socialize these digital payment systems. I don't believe in going back to cash. I believe in digital payments. We should own them collectively. Because, Michel, we create money collectively. It's a mistake to think that the central bank creates the money. You know, in every advanced economy, only about 3 to 4% of money has been created by the central bank. The rest is created privately. Every time a bank extends a loan or an overdraft facility, it creates money. This is immense power. And I do believe that in democracies, this power should be democratized. Okay. And the technology gives us an opportunity to do that. So Elon Musk opens a way for us to do that which he doesn't want us to do.
Okay. It's very useful to have got both your diagnosis of the problem and at least one or some of your solutions for the future. We only have a minute left, so leave the audience here with one action point. You're still going to use these apps, we're all still going to use these services, but what would you like people here to take action on?
Well, if you are the mayor of a city, or if you play an active role as an active citizen in your municipality, in your region, what about suggesting that you, create a socially owned competitor to Uber, Airbnb, to Google, and to Amazon? Why should these rents end up at the Cayman Islands, through Ireland usually, being owned by big tech, the big tech oligarchy, who, on the one hand, they're very smart people, and they deserve to be rich, but they don't deserve to collect 30% of global GDP simply because they have monopoly over us. We can differ politically between rightists, leftists, centrists, and so on and so forth. But I don't think we can disagree that having a monopoly over the most powerful form of capital, which is so concentrated in two loci, in Silicon Valley and around Shenzhen, that does not make for a stable world, that poisons our democracies, and it even intensifies the clash between the United States and China, making this world a much more existentially challenged place.